We'll do this. We'll do this for you. Anytime a sidewalk breaks and we have to replace it, we'll go ahead and put a curb cut in for you then. So just wait. We'll get to it. So, and they did. They patronized the patronizers. They said, all right, fine. We'll wait patiently. And then what they did is they went home and they organized. And they said, no, we're not waiting. Sidewalks are made of concrete. This is going to take forever. I have a date next week. I need to go from this house to this movie theater and back. And they mapped it out. And they said, all right, let's recruit the entire community, people with disabilities, people without disabilities, people with visible disabilities, people with invisible disabilities. And they dressed in black. And they put that stuff under their eyes, not because they had to, but it looks cool. And they took axes, pitchforks, hammers, whatever they could find that would break concrete, and they went out when no one was looking, and they broke the sidewalks that they need access to. So when the city of Berkeley woke up the next day, they said, oh my gosh, we got to put in curb cuts. And that is how, that is the militant, we're not going to wait anymore attitude that makes me very proud to be a part of this community.
25 years ago, a group of Americans shed their wheelchairs and climbed up the U.S. Capitol building. Today, those who have benefited from the Capitol Crawl appeared in downtown Missoula for the ADA Legacy Bus Tour to talk about their past struggles and the distance they must go to achieve equality. Jason Glozier still thinks there's a lot of work to be done.
But one of the stories I always tell when I do trainings is about this girl, Catherine, that I knew. She was in my high school and she graduated with my class. However, when I graduated at age 18, she was graduating special education at age 21. Catherine lived in a small town. She didn't have access to resources and to those things that provided her with the equity that she should deserve. And she ended up staying in that town, relying on public transportation and specialized transportation to get to and from the sheltered workshop. Now I contrast that with my brother who went to college and is looking for a job and is living the life of any other 20-year-old, and I see a very different dynamic. The travesty of that whole situation is that Catherine's only disability was the fact that she was blind, and she grew up in a rural area and didn't have access to resources or education.
According to the U.S. Department of Labor, the average unemployment rate for people with disabilities is almost double that of those without, a statistic that is much lower than it used to be.
When I went to try to get jobs, I noticed that I wasn't getting interviews for jobs that I was well qualified for, and I knew other people that were getting interviews for the same job. It didn't take me too long to realize that when you fill out a form, an application, and it has a little checkbox that said, are you a person with a disability? If you check that off, you ain't going to get an interview.
For John Nosey, losing his leg labeled him disabled, which killed many opportunities for him getting any kind of work. Americans with Disabilities Act allowed people in Nosey's position to get back their independence. As for Bob Liston, he was rendered disabled in a car accident in 1971. From there, he got involved with ADAPT, which is a disabilities activist group that fought to improve accessibility for those who have trouble getting into their homes and other places.
A lot of people are celebrating other people's rights, and for some reason, people with disabilities tend to be forgotten. We don't get the same focus. We don't have the same power, and so we need to keep fighting. And one of the ways that we have to fight is through civil disobedience, and that's going to continue on until we get the same rights that everybody else does.
I guess in perfect world, or kind of the utopian idea is that we wouldn't even be talking about this because people with disabilities wouldn't be even thought of as any different than anyone else, which really they aren't, but that misconception exists. And so, you know, if we were all to just be more accepting of one another and, you know, not even recognize the difference, that'd be fantastic.
Many participants and organizations gathered to show their support for the ADA. Jude Munson from Summit Independent Living Center talked about how Montana got involved when Justin Dart, known as the godfather of ADA, came to Montana.
Everybody came together and said, this is what we need and how are we going to get it done, and we're going to do it with the legislators, we're going to do it within the law, we're going to do it in the most strongest advocacy way we can. So when Justin Dart came to Montana, he came to Great Falls, and Mike Nair, our summit director, and myself drove up there, and Justin Dart was one of those guys who just, he had this big old honking cowboy hat, and he sat in his chair and he said, give me your stories. I need stories, and please write those stories, and please pass this on. So once we finally got the law, it was a huge celebration in 1990, and ever since then we've spent all of our time continuing to educate people about employment and access and just some of the basic kinds of things that people need to know, whether it's anything that's public access or program access.
The ADA Legacy Bus will complete its cross-country tour on July 26th in Washington, D.C. For tour dates and more information, log on to adalegacy.com. In Missoula, I'm Scott Ranf.